distant lands, our forefathers came, some seeking adventure, some bound in chains. For CARICOM, hele hele bravo, open you sing CARICOM, leve leve wow, naki you drum CARICOM, tabu ya tabu awo, open you sing CARICOM, leve leve wow, raise your voice.
Good evening and welcome to the second in a series of 4 television programs called Chatting CARICOM. My name is Silas Hamilton and my panel this evening is Senator Darcy Boyce, Minister within the Office of the Prime Minister here in Barbados, Mr. Joseph Cox, Assistant Secretary General Trade and Economic Integration at the CARICOM Secretariat, and Miss Evelyn Wayne, Director, Economic Policy and Development, also from the CARICOM Secretariat. Good evening, panel. Along with a studio audience, we are here at the Caribbean Media Corporation, CMC in Barbados, and the purpose of this series is to continue the engagement on regional integration, to give visibility and update on the regional projects, and take questions from those in the studio, via the phone lines and via social media. We also say welcome to those of you watching online and on the various systems across the region. We especially welcome the feedback from the first program and especially those who ask when will be the next one. Thanks to the European Union for the assistance in facilitating this television series. And as you will hear, we also acknowledge the further contributions made by this international development partner to the region. Stick around for the next 60 minutes as we begin Chatting CARICOM.
I think there need to be more awareness programs, and people need to be more edified about the CSMA. Because I think, there's a lot of opportunities throughout the Caribbean, and I think a lot of people are missing out.
Even if the policy was airtight, in theory, in practice, it would encounter problems because countries tend to retain a sense of identity, even if they have a common region, common ancestry, or common cultures. It's just a thing with borders where nations try to remain themselves regardless. And so different grievances would come up between the countries and the way they operate, even in a single market, due to these issues. And because of that, I'm not sure if the CARICOM single market economy would work at 100% efficiency.
I think what's missing from the process at this stage is more ownership of the process by the people across the region. We need to realize that we are the individuals, not at the political level, but at the grassroots level. We are the ones that need to make the idea of the CSMA become a reality.
For CARICOM, from many distant lands, our forefathers came, some seeking adventure, some bound in chains.
Every day across the Caribbean, non-food goods made locally, regionally and internationally make their way into the hands of consumers. And from time to time, some of those goods may be defective and might actually cause harm. The CARICOM Rapid Alert System for the Exchange of Information on Dangerous Non-Food Consumer Goods, CAREX, has been set up to protect you. If you receive dangerous goods, you can file a complaint with your local CAREX contact point, or you can log on to www.carex.caricom.org and fill out the online form. The relevant agency will investigate, and once that is complete, the CAREX system will alert other countries in the region so that consumers will be protected from goods that pose a serious risk. For more information and to see the categories of goods covered under the system, visit www.carex.caricom.org or contact your local CAREX contact point. The CARICOM Single Market and Economy. Make it work for you.
Follow your heart. to the 21st edition of the St. Kitts Music Festival from the 22nd to the 24th of June, featuring Shabaranks, Ultimate Rejects, The Boozman, Mobado, Jack Pure, DJ Private Riot, and back together again, Square One. Also performing Third Word, Voice, King Mighty Chalk Dust, Credence Clearwater Revisited, Ed Robinson, Ricardo Drew, Tedison John, Felicia Ross, Brianna D, Lyrical, and Goo Goo Dolls. For more information, log on to www.stkitsmusicfestival.net.
For CARICOM. Hele, hele, bravo. Open you sing CARICOM. Leve, leve, wow.
Welcome back to Chatting CARICOM here in the studio with the panel. And just before we went to the break, we heard what people on the streets in the different CARICOM member states felt were missing from the CARICOM single market and economy. As we begin with this second episode in Chatting CARICOM, Minister Darcy Boyce, tell us, in your view, what are some of the biggest challenges facing the community and the CARICOM member states?
I think the greatest problem that we have, really, is a matter of the levels of employment, particularly among the younger people in the region. And this relatively lower level of employment that we would like to have is related to the matter that the growth in the region, the growth in our economies over the last few years have been in most cases not been stellar rates of growth. We've not had the level of activity in our economies for the most part that we'd like to have. There have been from time to time some spots that have been brighter than others, but generally we haven't had the level of economic growth that we would like to have. And that absence of growth and the lower level of economic activity has put us in a bit of a spot of bother when it comes to our public finances. Our fiscal deficits have been higher for the most part than we would have liked them to be, which means that the governments don't have the amount of room to stimulate the economies as they would like to do to get jobs, keep jobs going. And because we haven't been doing as well as we like to do fiscally, we've run up higher levels of debt than we would want, we would have wanted to run up. And of course, the higher the amount of debt you've got, often the higher the interest rates you pay, the more the debt services to pay back the debt and to pay the interest on it. And since you have to meet those costs first, you don't have the space to do the kind of stimulation that you would like in the economy and do the things you want to do to help the young people to move forward. And finally, I think we need to, two other things I need to mention. One is that we've all been faced really with infrastructure, public infrastructure and economic infrastructure, which has been there for a number of years and which now require attention if they're going to be as functional as we want them to be. And most of us, finally, have not had the levels of growth and productivity or the levels of performance in terms of efficiency in our economies as we would like them to have. Things have generally taken, for the most part, too long. We've not moved as fast as we like to move on ICT and information technologies and on energy, renewable energy, though we're making some progress now. And generally speaking, I think we are losing ground against the rest of the world when it comes to the efficiency with which we do things and the our level of performance.
It looks as though you're saying we have several challenges.
Yes, we have several
Yes.
challenges, and each one is a serious one.
Yes. Thanks, Minister. A.S.G. Cox, how can the CSME position CARICOM member states to address some of these major issues?
Well, you see, since I'm a quiet and shy man, I'll probably refrain from using the most obvious response to you. But I will tell the audience this, and you this. First of all, the first question you raised, or the first question how you raised it, it's almost a case as if we at the CARICOM Secretariat, we are going to position the CSME in a particular way. CSME is not CARICOM Secretariat. CSME is CARICOM. CSME is everybody. And for the first problem, the first challenge that I suspect that we face, and the more fundamental challenge where we have to treat with the situation, is this. We have to define the role, or to redefine the role of the state. The state is there to create the environment, to facilitate the growth that Minister Boyce is speaking about. This role of the state can create the environment, create a platform for the growth, but the private sector is the people, right, are the people who will have to actually create the jobs, to get involved. The day has long passed where the state gets involved in running the economy, so to speak. They create the environment. So that is the first way how we treat with some of the challenges. The next part of it is that it's also a perception issue. Because one of the issues that I find with us in this region is that we have developed a sort of rational myopia. In other words, we get accustomed to things not particularly changing fast enough over time. So what we do is that we rationalize and say, well, it will never change, and it is an argument for the status quo. In the same sense that you have people who advocate that you have certain industries that could never, they can't exist without getting a whole raft of incentives. The fact of life is that in clinically looking at where we are now and how we are going to get, how we're going to transition to the next phase, we have to start to look at what exactly is it that we are driving, what are the real drivers of the economies, and what is it that we're hoping to get. And for what we have, the effort that we have expended so far, what have been the returns to date, and do we need to do a fundamental recheck?
But would you say that the CSME, however, can in fact address some of the issues raised by Minister Boyce in terms of levels of unemployment, high debt, etc.?
Well, I mean, the CSME, what we're looking at basically developing a platform, a strategy, basically, a series of strategies to generate growth. So, of course, the CSME as a vehicle can be doing it. But remember something equally. The CSME is basically a response to a dynamic global environment. So it will always be evolving, always changing. So there is no finite period of time for this to happen, because it will continue to evolve over time. So this is where you're going to be seeing a lot of the things. Because, for example, industries that we are identifying now in 2017, in the year 2000, most of us wouldn't even have conceived of anything like existing.
Okay. And you lean forward, Mr. Minister Boyce.
We talk here about the CSME and the link with the issues I've raised. And let me, like Joseph say, the CSME is really a framework within which things happen. And it's part of that integration framework on which we set out in 1968. What we are seeing now in the Caribbean is a lot of pan-Caribbean companies rising to the challenge that is there in front of us. So you've got a lot of Caribbean companies investing right around the Caribbean. And they're employing people from right around the Caribbean. And they're bringing people from one Caribbean country to live and work in another Caribbean country. And that is happening for the most part, with very little discussion. And we forget, when we talk with the CSME, sometimes we forget that the CSME really is the companies in the region, the people in the region, and how they are integrating the economic activities. So we have sandals right around the region. We've got Massy around the region. We've got Sagicor around the region. We've got Guardian around the region. We have Republic Bank around the region. We have For Citizens around the region.
A lot of them we have. And we're not giving them any free advertising.
What's that?
We're not going to give them any free advertising.
And they are employing people. And that, to me, is part of the integration movement. That is part of what the CSME is about. And, you know, and they employ a lot of youngsters now, too. Our aim has to be to get them to invest even more, and to get them to bring some of their colleagues, some of their other firms to invest more right around the region to give jobs to our young people.
The first section of any broadcast is where you really have the test of how it's going to pan out. And I could see that 15 minutes have gone and I haven't heard anything from you yet, Miss Wayne. So I'll come to you in the second 15 minutes. And I must say that we are focusing on this program on the single economy, and some of the aspects under the single economy we will look at when we come back from the break. But you were speaking, Minister Boyce, about the people of the region, and also you, ASG Cox, and that they are the ones who make up this community, this CSME. So we'll continue with our Vox Pops, Voice of the People from the region, to hear and see what they have been saying that is missing from the CSME.
It was a bit rushed, so there are certain things that I felt, even up to today, I still feel that there should have been a bit more communication, and there needs to be a bit more understanding among the people of some of the aspects of CSM.
And lack of information. I don't know much about it. Perhaps a bit more of community forum where perhaps persons can really learn about this thing called CSME.
I believe that Jamaicans and Jamaica are not actually benefiting from CARICOM. If you look at Barbados, about 80 or 90% of their exports are to CARICOM countries, while here in Jamaica we are importing so much from Trinidad, and they're importing so little from us. So how exactly are we benefiting in our economy?
From many distant lands, our forefathers came, some seeking adventure, some
Beautiful Barbados and 4D Entertainment welcome you to the Flow Soca on the Hill, Sunday, July 23rd, 2017, where the mega stars of Crop Over 2017 assemble with the Caribbean Fest, Patrice, Skinny Fabulous, Ricky T, Orlando Octave, and Ultimate Rejects to bring you the world's greatest soca party, the Flow Soca on the Hill. Let's gather the people.
One aim of the CARICOM Single Market and Economy, CSME, is for CARICOM nationals to be able to move in the region, to seek work, to visit, to establish a business, or to provide services. CARICOM also provides a complaints procedure which allows you to report any instances where you have experienced difficulty in accessing your rights, either on arrival or once in the country. Simply complete the form provided online and at a number of locations. Submit it to the CSME focal point in your home country, the country where you had an issue, or via the web. The complaints procedure works to safeguard access to CSME for all CARICOM nationals. For more information, visit csmeonline.org or call your local CSME authority. The CARICOM Single Market and Economy. Make it work for you. Welcome back to Chatting CARICOM, and Miss Wayne, as I promised, we'll try and get some questions thrown at you. In the first program, we were told that there was some blurring between the single market and the single economy. How are they linked?
Silas, it's the CARICOM single market and economy. You cannot have an economy without a market and a market without an economy. So they are interlinked, they're integrally linked together. What we have been calling the single market is really the market infrastructure that allows for the free movement regime. But you need to support the market infrastructure with a number of measures to create the enabling environment. And those measures would involve a number of macroeconomic policies, policies related to the financial sector, investment policies, as well as sectoral policies. And together, the market infrastructure and the policy framework would allow for the creation of the single economic space, which would result in the kind of competitive production that we are looking for. The competitive production that is going to result in additional jobs, more exports, so that we can penetrate third markets. So it's the CSME is an interlinked process. You cannot have the market without the economy and the economy without the market.
Ms. Wayne, Evelyn, if you had to give a simple definition for macroeconomic policy, what would it be?
Well, a simple definition. Simply, it's the financial policies that governments put in place to support the productive sectors. It's your interest rate policies. It's your monetary policies. It's the whole range of economic policies that governments put in place to support productive activity and the private sector.
If I have to give a simple definition of the single market, would it be like a Jamaica, the creation of a market space, and you're trying with the member states of CARICOM? Would that be correct? Some of the things are not in place as yet, but you should be able to move from St. John's, Antigua to Montego Bay, Jamaica, and move your goods, your services, your capital. Would that be a simplified, correct definition?
Yes, we're talking about
at least moving towards it.
Reduction of transaction costs, seamless transactions. So transactions between Barbados and Guyana would be as if there are transactions between Christchurch and
St. Lucie.
So what you're trying to create is an arrangement where there are seamless transactions with minimal transactions costs.
SG Cox, I come back to you in terms of specifically being the Assistant Secretary General for a very critical directorate, Trade and Economic Integration. What are some of the focus areas within the directorate that you have been trying to pursue with the community?
Well, we have in the directorate we have what 11 units. We have interest obviously in agriculture, energy, transport. We do a substantial amount of work on services, where right now we're trying to roll out the services strategies for the sectors, because as everybody will recognize, services, the orientation of most of our economies across this region has really shifted from, say, manufacturing per se to services. So you're getting that. Of course, we have the economics unit and so on. So and of course ICT. ICDT for development. So we have a whole range of issues. But the challenge that, and one of the things, Silas, that I want us not to lose sight of, is that whereas we are focusing a lot on the growth issues, growth strategies, the growth that is required is an all-inclusive growth. So you have to also look at the social sectors, what's happening in terms of the labor market, how you can transform that. How can you remove some of the institutionalized rigidities in your marketplace for you to get the efficiencies? You also have to look at your social strategies. How do you treat the people who might become economically disadvantaged because of the strategies and the necessary transformation of our economies? So in other words, it is for you to get this all-inclusive growth. It's not just my director. It's not just trade and economic integration. It also involves human and social development. It also involves a whole range of additional issues for you to get that sort of nexus, for you to move forward. Because let me tell you something. People love to say, I've spoken in many forums. I hear people say, oh, good luck with this CSME. Well, I have something to tell you all. You know what is LUCK? LUCK is an acronym. It means labor under certain knowledge. You understand? So in other words, you come to the table with your knowledge. You come to the table with your institutionalized strategy, and you're going to roll it out. It is not, even at the level of CARICOM Secretariat, it's not one directorate. It's all of us, because all of us are working towards a particular goal, and that is the achievement of the single market in all its facets as we step forward.
I've never heard about that acronym explained that way. Have you, Minister Boyce? But he had mentioned earlier, ASG Cox, about renewable energy, and I suspect you have some responsibility for that in Barbados. And at the community level, what are we doing in terms of renewable energy?
Well, at the community level, we've developed for a couple of years now a regional strategy on renewable energy, indeed a strategy on energy as a whole. And what has been happening since that time, each country has been rolling out that is its version of that strategy as quickly as it can. There are no large monolithic regional projects in renewable energy, and probably won't be any. But each country has done its work with wind, or with solar, or with natural gas, or with
geothermal.
Other areas. And we've seen the last couple of years quite a pickup now in the amount of solar energy that's available. In Jamaica, there's been quite a pickup in the amount of wind that they're doing. Of course, Guyana has always had some hydro in Belize and Dominica and so on. We in Barbados have been picking up a fair amount of steam recently with the solar. So that work is unfolding, and I expect that it's going to pick up more speed in the next couple of years. It can go twice as fast as happened so far. A year and a half ago in Barbados, we probably had 2 megawatts out of our 200 megawatts capacity, 2 megawatts from solar. Now we have 23 in the year, and I expect that come next year, this time, we'll have maybe 50 megawatts.
We have to go to break, but I suspect the rather simple question is the link between that and some of our high debt, the renewable energy.
Well, the renewable energy is going to help us to reduce our use of foreign exchange. Most of us in the region, most of the governments are dependent on the private sector to make the investments in renewable energy. And what we've done is created a framework, both a policy and fiscal incentives for the private sector to take on that mantle. They've been doing that quite well, and for the most part, the investments in renewable energy have not involved governments in borrowing a lot of money, but the private sector doing it themselves, and that will save us some foreign exchange as we avoid having to purchase fossil fuel in the marketplace.
We can't believe, but we are halfway through, and we go to another break, and nothing is wrong in addressing some of the comments we have been hearing from across the region. One we would have heard is the whole issue of having more information on the CSME, and another had to do with trade And one gentleman I can recall saying that there was more trade coming into a certain member state and not enough going out. So nothing is wrong if we can spontaneously respond to some of those and correct. And for the start, I would of course say that yes, this is why we have such a program like this to address some of the issues in terms of information. We can never have too much information, but as you would have said, ASG Cox, at the national level too, we need the assistance or member states to run with similar programs like this, because it is so important. So we take another break halfway through and we hear what the persons across the region have been saying, what is lacking in the CSME.
I would say awareness or probably promotion, because yes, we know the program is in place, but we're not hearing much about it in terms of the free movement of human resource, probably goods and services, yes.
There seems to be an absence of political will, right, to make it work, you know, because it means that there has to be a change in mindset and the legal arrangements with respect to all our institutions, our state institutions that serve the general public.
I think that the organization needs to let the public be made more aware of what it is about and how it benefits the economy as a whole, because a lot of persons are being kept in the dark.
From many distant lands, our forefathers came, some seeking adventure, some bound
the
in
CARICOM
chains.
Single Market and Economy, CSME, opportunities to relocate for work as a CARICOM skilled national have been expanded to include 10 categories of persons. 2 of those categories are artisans and household domestics holding a Caribbean Vocational Qualification or CVQ. A CVQ is a certificate you can apply for based on how well you do your job. If you are certified as a household domestic, including housekeepers and home health workers, or an artisan, including persons in the building trade, craft persons, and machine operators, you could be eligible to move for work. CVQ standards have been developed with regional employers, so your skills will be recognized wherever you go. Contact your national training agency to find out about CVQs for artisans or household domestics, or visit csmeonline.org for more information. The CARICOM Single Market and Economy. Make it work for you.
If you like dancing and whining and fretting till the morning, if you like
drinking, masquerading, live music always playing,
if you like islands of blue seas where people always smiling, if you like
street jams and bandstands where people will be jamming, don't you miss this time, no.
Make this culture of a 43,
our festival, our legacy, don't you miss this time, no.
Make this culture of a 43.
For CARICOM.
Welcome back to Chatting CARICOM. I can't believe we have about 25 more minutes left, and let us see how we can manage with that as we now engage the studio audience and the community online and the persons watching, and can call on the toll-free number, which I think is being called at the bottom of the screen. You would have heard just before we went to break the people across the region once again speaking about political will, Minister Boyce, and as we just said also, the whole point about awareness on the CSME. So members of the studio audience, please, those of you with questions, you can ask as we continue with the program Chatting CARICOM. Ms. Wayne, the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, that is the agreement among the CARICOM member states, calls for the removal of restrictions on banking and other financial services. What specific action has been taken in that regard?
Well, prior to the signing of the Single Market Declaration in 2006, all member states except 2 removed restrictions on intra-regional movement of financial transfers. So only 2 member states currently have restrictions on intra-regional financial transactions. Those member states have been allowed to retain their restrictions for macroeconomic stability, for purposes of macroeconomic stability. The Secretariat has also worked with member states to put in place an agreement which would result in, I guess you would say, the more efficient movement of financial services within the community. It would result in the more effective and efficient operation of financial entities, as well as for the regulation of those entities, particularly the ones which have operations cross-border.
Minister Boyce, I don't know if you'd want to respond to the political will. It has been bandied around for a number of years. You hear terms like there is no political will, a deficit, I think implementation deficit. I think those are 2 of the terms that have been bandied around by many persons over the years in terms of the integration process.
Well, I don't agree with the view that there's not political will there. I think there is a view among people that the integration movement ought to have reached a particular goal sooner than it really could have reached that goal. It is a process that a process on which we are embarked, and you're never going to reach the goals that you want to reach in maybe the time that you're looking to reach them. But for what I have seen happen in CARICOM, I think that the will is there. What people often do is confuse, is forget what is happening in practice. Forget what is happening in practice and focus almost exclusively on form. Have you got your laws in place? But you can have the laws in place and not get the results you're looking for. Or the laws may not be there, but administratively you are making sure that things are happening. And I think that when you look at what is happening in the Caribbean, in the integration movement, there's a lot happening on the ground, rather than necessarily in the legislatures and so on. I mean, I'm going to go back to the point I started off with very early on. Nobody starts to think that all the cross-border investment in this region is because of the integration drive that we have. So when Sandals comes to Barbados and it builds 500 hotel rooms and employs 1,000 people or whatever the figure is, and brings its management from wherever they want to bring them from in the Caribbean, we don't stop to think that this is a real integration project, and that it is moving capital around the region, it is moving managerial skills around the region, it is moving supervisory skills around the region. But when you hear the discussion on CARICOM and integration, you don't hear anything about the movement of capital that is occurring day by day. You don't even hear about LIAT. And LIAT moves, I think it must be 8 million passengers or something a year around this region. And it's one of the prime integration instruments. Notwithstanding all the things that people say about it, or all the things that it may do or not do. But those are but before LIAT, how are we going to get around the region? And we need to look at these practical issues about integration. And that tells you the political will is there, because LIAT still keeps flying every day.
Thank you, Minister Boyce. I also recognize in the studio audience, I think we have the CARICOM Youth Ambassadors from Barbados, am I right? Yes, I think I have both of them in the studio audience, along with some students, some postgrad students from the University of the West Indies. I think the Masters in International Trade Policy, am I right? Or integration? Trade policy. Yes, I remember. So welcome, and of course, don't be afraid. Some of these very questions may come on your exam, since I know your lecturer. Since I know your lecturer, so you can ask at this moment and get a free response from the panel here. We have been hearing, sure.
Before you move on, because I want to follow up with some of the stuff that Minister Boyce was raising, because you see we have to put into, and I'm sorry, we have to put the data on the table. In a 2014 study that was done by the IDB, it put out there 73% of our tertiary graduates leave to go to the OECD countries. 43% of our high school graduates do the same. That's where the movement of skilled labor comes in, because you have to be starting, and we have to look at these things. Are these mechanisms perfect? Of course not. You'll have hiccups here and there. But the movement of the skilled labor across the region is trying to fill the gap. That's one. Two, in one member state, 70.1% of the labor force has no certification. Right? Not to say people aren't skilled enough, but they have no certification. These are some of the real challenges that you're trying to fix. It won't be fixed overnight. It can't be. Right? When you're talking about 25% of a labor force in some member states existing at the level of the minimum wage, then you're starting to see the emergence of the dynamic here. It's a process. It's not something people easily come out and glibly tell you, oh, there's an absence of political will. And if you want, I can throw in another buzz phrase for you. It's also reform fatigue. Ladies and gentlemen, understand something. This is a process, and it has to be, we have to exercise patient capital. You cannot go in, because you have to be very careful. You're talking about different countries, with different sovereign states, with different economic environments, different challenges, so you can't go in and very quickly just solve everything overnight. It doesn't work like that. Because you have to do it in a deliberative fashion so that you do minimum damage and optimize the benefit that you get. That is what this process is about. I can't, up to this morning as teasing Minister Boyce, I said there's a phrase that we use sometimes. We say that individually we go fast, but collectively we go far. That is the reality of CARICOM.
So if we had to take away from the 2 points, we are saying that the CSME is a work in progress.
It's not only a work in progress, it's a work that will never end, because the world in which we live continues to dynamically to grow. And see, that's the point that we keep on making. 20 years ago, what we saw as the emerging industry, some of them don't exist anymore.
Not only is it a work in progress, but it is a work that has achieved quite significant successes. We do not tally them, we do not inform people about them, and the point that the caller made about the information is a point very well made and taken. We need to be able to show the people of the region which are the companies are generating jobs around the region. How many of our regional graduates are working in countries outside of their own home country? I know in Barbados we give a lot of work permits to regional people, contrary to what people think. I won't call the figure because it's not good to call it at this time. But several work permits, along with the CARICOM skilled national things. And we have no difficulty with that, because what we intend to do clearly is to get as best we can, the finest and the brightest to come and work here live here or work in Barbados, because that's consistent with what we want to do in terms of growing the economy. But there have been some good successes from the integration movement, and you hear me use the words integration movement rather than CSME. CSME is just a small part of the integration movement. It involves the health and social committees that deal with education and skills, and the hospitals and all that. And then there's the one that deals with transportation. So there's a whole set of institutions that help to make up what we do, including UWI.
Yes.
And we often don't see UWI as part of the integration movement, but it was one of the earliest parts of the integration movement in the region. I mean, I went to school at UWI in Jamaica, and I like that experience because once again it put me from Barbados into a regional milieu with other people where I had more chance to interact with persons outside of Barbados I would normally have had if I'd been to KFL. We mustn't forget those parts. And there was a time when you could call all the top people around the region, and they would have been at school with you somewhere in the UWI community.
We have to take a break now, Senator Boyce, but the point is well taken in terms of some of us who might have been at UWI Mona, not at the same time with you, however. We continue with hearing what I was going to say man, but the persons across the region have been saying in terms of what is missing in the CSME or regional integration.
Well, I think that there is a lack of integration among the countries in the CSME towards a common goal, and I think there is friction within the organization because, for instance, there's been cases of Jamaicans facing difficulty entering to countries such as Trinidad and Barbados, etc. So I think there are many problems, but that is just one of them.
I just figure that some of the heads of the different governments should ensure that everything is done equally across the region, because some countries have some rules and others don't have, and it causes sort of kind of diversity to me.
I think the policies should change so that it can benefit Jamaica more, and also to implement the young adults in carrying out these tasks, because we are very young and innovative to touch things.
From many distant lands, our forefathers came, some seeking adventure, some...
Follow your heart to the 21st edition of the St. Kitts Music Festival from the 22nd to the 24th of June, featuring Shabaranks, Ultimate Rejects, The Boozman, Mobado, Jack Pure, DJ Private Ryan, and back together again, Square One. Also performing Third Word, Voice, King Mighty Chalk Dust, Credence Clearwater Revisited, Ed Robinson, Ricardo Drew, Tedison John, Felicia Ross, Brianna D, Lyrical, and Goo Goo Dolls. For more information, log on to www.stkitsmusicfestival.net.
Grow your business or promote your event through the services offered by the Caribbean Media Corporation and CaribVision. Our distribution provides a platform on cable, terrestrial television, and websites. We cover carnivals and events from across the region. We can bring your event live and alive to the world. For music makers, program producers, businesses, we can expand your reach to in excess of 2 million households daily. Our other services include news updates to enhance your media products, studio space for program and development. We can facilitate the launch of new products and services and training. Contact us and we will help you unleash your creative ability, develop products and services, and provide the medium to watch them grow. Contact Loretta Skeet at cmccaribbean.com or call her 1-246-467-1044 or 1-246-253-3889. Call and book your carnival or event today.
For CARICOM. Hele, hele, bravo. Open you sing CARICOM.
Welcome back to Chatting CARICOM. I cannot believe that this program is almost over. This segment is going to be a very short one. I think I went over the last segment, so I can't do that in the final one. Before we went to break, we had a question from an online viewer and basically asking from Trinidad, will there be consensus regarding labeling and content of labels on products? This, she believes, or he believes, is one of the stumbling blocks to trade, if there'll be consensus regarding labels. I think that would be more something for our colleagues at the CARICOM Regional Organization for Standards and Quality.
Yes.
So I will certainly endeavor to seek the input from CrossQ, and maybe we can put it on our website for the person online who asked that question. I'll try and do that tomorrow. Look at www.caricom.org or csmeonline.com.org. Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. How could we speak on aspects of the single economy and CSME, regional integration, and especially with you here, Senator Boyce and also Director Wayne, without touching on the Commission on the Economy and what it is set up for, the work that has been done by this commission, and quickly between both yourself and Senator Boyce?
Well, the commission was set up in late 2013. I was out of a meeting of the Council for Finance and Planning, COFAP.
And you are the chair? And
I'm the chair. Barbara is the chair, and the Prime Minister has asked me if I chair on his behalf. And they recognized at the time some of the problems I alluded to earlier, the slow growth in the region, the fiscal problems, the debt, and so on. And the commission was asked to provide advice to the governments as to how they might want to go about trying to solve these particular issues that we had. And we've done that. We've identified the areas that we think are ripe for growth, that will have an impact on jobs, most impact on jobs and growth in the short run. We've also given advice on the areas of infrastructure that we think need to get improved if you're going to be able to keep up with the growth that we're looking for. Our recommendation that we should focus more on the key competitive advantage which the Caribbean has, which is in its tourism area, and that area would generate jobs fastest because it would have construction as well as hotel operating jobs. But to do that, you have to make sure that you have an airlift policy in place for an extra-regional and linked in with the regional airlift policy, and Evelyn can tell us but the study has just been done on that matter for us. And we've also identified things like water, making sure we have enough water, that our airports are improved and expanded, our seaports are sorted out, that our waste systems are done up, and that we deal with the issues of facilitating business and make sure that things happen faster in the region. That, and what we found that this is not a monolithic CARICOM plan. This is some advice, and each country has been taking different parts of that advice and moving it along at their own pace. So there's been a very much a coalition on the willing, and what we're happy to see that most of the island, most of the countries have focused their own development plans along those particular areas that we were looking at.
In particular, the Commission has focused its attention on the fiscal situation in member states. And last year, the heads of government adopted a recommendation that we should put in place fiscal responsibility frameworks. So the Commission is currently doing the technical work to determine the models that would suit our CARICOM circumstances and to come up with a suitable framework for the member states, for adoption by the member states.
There are so many more questions to ask on. I can think of at least 5 top of my head. Whatever happened to the move towards a single currency? Isn't it a lot easier for integration if we had a single currency?
Perhaps it would be, but the single currency was an initial consideration that was put on pause by the heads of government pending the full implementation of the CSME arrangements. And in 2011, the heads took the decision to pause the single currency process until we had significantly advanced the arrangements for the CSME.
I promised this was going to be very short. We're going to take a 30-second commercial break and then we'll come back to wrap up. Chatting CARICOM, we go to break at this moment.
Beautiful Barbados and 4D Entertainment welcome you to the Flow Soca on the Hill, Sunday, July 23rd, 2017, where the mega stars of Crop Over 2017 assemble with the Caribbean Fest, Patrice, Skinny Fabulous, Ricky T, Orlando Octave, and Ultimate Rejects to bring you the world's greatest soca party, the Flow Soca on the Hill. Let's gather the people.
I think from the studio audience and especially on the set, it has been a very interesting discussion, and maybe that's why many persons, especially the online and telephone calls, have been doing more listening rather than calling, because there's just so much information we have covered. I'm going to give each of you the opportunity for final points and 30 seconds each, but so I don't rush to also give the credits at the end, I would like to say thanks, of course, to the European Union for the assistance it has been given to the community, the integration process, and a lot of the activities, especially discussed by Evelyn, would have been done with the assistance of the European Union under the 10th EDF. I think that's the acronym. We love to use acronyms. That means the Development Fund, and we are very happy for those resources. The third program, we are hoping we can have it right here, same place, on the Caribbean Media Corporation, the 28th of June. And that one should be an exciting, again, presentation, this time looking at the free movement of skills and what that means. So I go to you and I start, maybe Evelyn, you first this time in terms of your final 30 seconds wrap-up comments.
Okay, Salas, let me just say the CSME is working. The CSME is, and the CARICOM nationals need to make the CSME work for them. The arrangements are substantially in place, and we have started to see successes. So I'll just stop there.
Okay. ASG Cox, 20 seconds.
You're limited. No, the final comment I really wanted to share is that where we need to transition to as we advance this process is we need to get our data collection process more streamlined. We have to, in terms of policy determination, it must be more data driven, and therefore our interventions can be more effective and more seamless as we go forward. The reality of life is that the CSME as a process, CSME will be with us. CSME, yes, we are treating, we take on board the criticism about public education, etc. But
ASG, the pleasure is mine to cut you. Minister Boyce, you have 20 seconds as well.
My view is that the integration movement is alive and well. It is achieving some significant successes, but we need to publicize the successes and get that data out to the public. And even when it comes to the travel, ease of travel, we're doing well on that as well. 79 people out of 123,000 who came to Barbados from CARICOM returned back last year. So I'm happy with it, and I want to assure people that the political will is there to make it happen. But we should take our time, because we do not know the road on which we are embarked. We can only guess at it.
Thank you very much, Minister Boyce. I have only 5 more seconds, so I say thank you for watching Chat in CARICOM, and stay tuned, watch this space for the next show. Thanks to everyone.
From many distant lands, our forefathers came. Some seeking adventure, some bound in chains. For CARICOM, hele hele bravo, open you sting CARICOM, leve leve wow, naki you drum CARICOM, tabu ya tabu awo, open you sting CARICOM, leve leve wow, raise your voice. Distant lands, our forefathers came. Some seeking adventure, some bound in chains. For CARICOM, hele hele bravo, open you sting CARICOM, leve leve wow, naki you drum CARICOM. Raise your voice. From many distant lands, our forefathers came. Some seek